any action to be taken? Or?
Councillor Dunst had another comment, and then we could ask for a resolution.
I'm not sure, Mr. Mayor, you will probably speak later on to the strategic plan, which we will
I certainly hope I'll be given the opportunity by myself.
We are not just talking about the budget, and which we have another 6 weeks to complete, but more important, or equally important, is our 5-year financial plan. And the financial plan, we all know, will be pretty much an administration of either poverty, or it will be an administration of some community building. And the community building can only happen if we sell some of the community lands. And in talking about strategic plan and Snug Cove, we have to be very clear that developing an initial phase of the community land is not necessarily the same as a development plan for Snug Cove, which is a much bigger task. And what I'm pushing, and pushing hopefully for very good reasons, is to identify a small first phase which can enable the community to move forward. The rest of Snug Cove and all the inherent complexities that will take longer and will exceed the term of this council, especially the lower cove. The lower cove will demand tremendous efforts, not only in patience for the public's concerns, but we need the involvement of Metro, ferry, and it needs a lot of money. I'm not talking about the lower cove. I have talked about the lower cove for the last 31 years, and I know what it takes to solve that. We will not be accomplished that in our term, except hopefully to make a few decisions to the implementation. What we need to implement is a first phase of the community lands to enable a reduction or retirement of our debt and the community center. So we are talking about two different issues.
In response to Councillor Dunst, is it possible, recognizing there's other strategic plan items that this marries in, is there a resolution you could propose for 5.2 that just ties into the proposed workshop regarding Snug Cove issues and that focus? Is there a way that you could maybe resolve that to give some direction for to be decided? And recognizing there's other larger strategic planning issues, that would be my suggestion. Councillor Morris had a comment as well. So.
I was thinking about asking for a motion along the lines of requesting staff to schedule a planning workshop with particular focus on Snug Cove, but other planning items as well, with council, and that it be scheduled no later than to happen no later than the middle of March.
That works from my perspective. That's where I was suggesting we get to, just to give some closure to this particular agenda item.
If that would be your motion, I would happy to second it.
Were you able to make sense of that?
Where you did that?
Well, I've got the council directs staff to schedule a workshop with particular focus on action in regards to
A planning workshop. Particular focus on Snug Cove.
On Snug Cove.
Or are we talking the surplus lands?
Or community surplus land includes.
Yeah.
Snug Cove includes the community land.
In the next
Before the end of March. Before the middle of March.
End of March or middle?
Middle of March.
Middle.
Okay, and I use the middle because the last 2 weeks of March are is spring break, I think, so
Okay. Want me to repeat it? The council directs staff to schedule a planning workshop with particular focus on action in regards to Snug Cove before the middle of March.
Councillor Morris, are you intending this to be
a workshop of council or with the public?
Council workshop.
But it's
Public
just
open
council.
workshop.
I would like to see it move forward so that we could have a public workshop sooner rather than later.
We have to advertise.
Well, my suggestion was before, no later than the middle of March is what I think I said. So that means sooner rather than later, but give some flexibility to find a day that works for everybody to spend a whole Monday here. And when I said workshop, I meant a committee of the whole.
Okay.
So change the wording to committee of the whole. So it's a public meeting, the public could be here. And we might have to move into close to talk about some other things as part of it, but I think we'd largely be a public meeting.
Seconder for that motion?
Okay.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Carried.
If you'd like me to speak to my conversation with our municipal solicitor. Agenda review is not in the purview of the mayor. Normally it is set out through the procedure bylaw or by municipal policy. We do not have a municipal policy on the issue, but our procedure bylaw does indicate that the corporate officer is responsible for preparing agendas and setting out all items for consideration. The second issue was removal of an agenda item from an agenda that's being set and approved. The mayor cannot remove agenda items once approved by council. There's no special role in that regard. The main difference between the role of mayor and council is the mayor can bring back resolutions for reconsideration within a 30-day period. And this is from Chris Nerdy, our municipal solicitor.
Okay.
Kathy, could you read the first one again? The first point?
The agenda review?
Yes.
That is not the purview of the mayor. It is normally set out through the procedure bylaw. And in that case, it could be set that the mayor does the handles the agenda review or by municipal policy, which we don't have in place. It can be set out through our procedure bylaw,
right,
that the mayor is responsible for agenda review. Some communities do that, or by municipal policy. But in each case, we don't have a municipal policy about agenda review. And our procedure bylaw indicates that the corporate officer is responsible for setting the agendas. This was a procedure bylaw adopted in 2004.
So the corporate officers is setting the agenda?
Yes, it's section 15.1 of our procedure bylaw, and this is in the first whereas of the recommendation, is responsible for preparing agendas and setting out all items for consideration at council meetings.
As opposed to council or the mayor?
As
opposed to mayor or council?
That's what our procedure bylaw says, but practice in the past has been for the mayor to set the agenda.
Set the agenda and for the corporate officer for preparing the agenda. Excuse me. So the mayor sets the agenda and the corporate officer prepares the agenda. Correct?
In conjunction, that has been past practice, but it is not a legal requirement, is what our solicitor is saying.
So who's in charge of, who on council is in charge of setting an agenda?
It doesn't say in our procedure bylaw. All it does, according to agenda review, is list the corporate officer's name.
Might I sort of make a suggestion? I think we all have items that we want to see on the agendas. There's a calendar up there on the wall that has a bunch of statutory deadlines we must meet. And perhaps we need to have an update to our strategic planning session. So perhaps as part of that, in deciding what things we want to see happen, we set some hard dates and put them on the calendar, because then the pieces of the strategic plan will come forward, and we do that as not only Snug Cove planning session would be some more hard dates that will come forward. And there's a whole bunch of other stuff that has to go on an agenda that's just processing of applications. And those need to be done on a timely basis too. So there often isn't a lot of space left in the agenda for what I call the discretionary strategic plan implementation items, so maybe we could have that as a topic of our next strategic planning session. Sort of a master calendar, what needs to be done by when.
Which is what the corporate officer normally keeps track of.
Yeah, but I guess as part of your strategic plan, you want to have something sold, you know, some lot developed in the community lands by a certain date, then you've got to look backwards and say, okay, then this report has to come to council by, it's got to have a reading by, and so forth. And I guess in the past, we've always just forwarded items that we all wanted on the agenda to the corporate officer to put in the, bring forward at some point. And there is the other process of notice of motion, if you want a specific item. And there is the other process that's in the community charter where if two councillors want something on the agenda, they can request it. So I'm not sure that we need another committee.
Some more, that's in Senate meetings, not agenda items.
Oh, okay, but if there was an issue we really wanted to address and it didn't get into an agenda, then we could, yeah.
You know, it begs the question of, is it council that sets the agenda, or is it the corporate officer that sets the agenda? If it's the corporate officer that sets the agenda, we might as well go home.
It certainly hasn't been practiced for the corporate officer to set the agenda.
Exactly. It doesn't make sense, actually. Does it?
But, Mr. Mayor, you have ordered that the 5.1 is not be dealt with.
Right.
After we have heard that the order is probably not warranted, would I be allowed to speak to that?
I'm concerned about time. It's 10 o'clock.
I'm concerned about process. Mainly
an
order which obviously is not warranted. So,
did you check on that, whether I can make it? And I can't. But even on point of order, I can't.
You can bring the issue up and ask for deferral of it.
Well, I'm all for discussing it. I think it'd be just dandy to waste some more time. Go ahead.